I'm going through something that I would have considered absolutely unsurvivable, but I'm surviving. And it's almost like you hit the bottom, like the thing you fear your whole life, you're in the side of, and it's like, well, nothing can get worse than this. You know, this is the bottom. Like I'm at the bottom of my pain and I'm alive. You know, there's something about like existentially amazing about that. Like I am alive inside of some of the most painful stuff a human can experience, and I'm going to survive this. So I think it's that breath to breath, moment to moment. And also that insight that you can get through going through incredibly painful experiences is that your consciousness can bear it. You can hold enormous amount of pain. And somehow that is expansive. That is profoundly expansive. And in a way, a gift, a deep gift to have that and survive that. And I know some people don't survive it. Like there have been people in my family who have had slow suicide, you know, through addictions or self-neglect. I've seen that. So it also, you know, there was a period where I was grieving and I felt like all of my ancestors' pain was inside of me expressing, and I could feel all of them and their pain of not wanting to live, not wanting to experience the pain being too much, and just being able to bear that, like to feel like, wow, I can feel all of them. This pain that I'm feeling is a shade or part of what they've felt, and I'm gonna survive this. Yeah.
It's a really beautiful description of that experience, especially giving the challenge of it all, right? The difficulty of trying to navigate you're 100% spot on. I mean, it's just like one of the most difficult things that a person would ever have to do. And I think so much of it has to do with, I mean, first and foremost, we all have these stories that we have about our parents, right? Mm-hmm. And they're the stories that we shaped and molded because of our lived experience with them, but also the stories that they told us and the environment that we grew up in and the family history and all of these kind of, it's not just saying, hey, mom, we need to change this relationship or I want to look at it. It's really standing up against that whole thing, the whole family dynamic of all of it, and being able to just stand there and be like, this isn't right, what's happening, and I need to change it for myself, and I'm going to do that. And that act, I think, is such a huge act of, like, yes, it's painful. Yes, it's the hardest thing. All the things that you just got done describing and have been describing about it, it's all of those. And I think it's just this massive act of self-love. It's like the very first time, I mean, speaking from experience, it felt like the very first time that I truthfully did something, not necessarily for myself. I don't want to minimize it in that way, but it just really felt like this incredible act of wading through all of the shit to grab myself and be like, come on, let's go. Let's get out of this. Let's go to something better that we believe in, that is possible. And you're just going to have to face all your worst nightmares to get there, but it's going to be okay eventually, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I love how you said that. Yeah. And I think one word that comes to my mind hearing you speak is integrity, and truth, like wanting to embody. It's a powerful thing to differentiate from family and say, this is what I'm for and about, and differentiating that from what their values are. Like my integrity, I think, is the safest space. That was a defining moment where I'm like, my safe space is not with them and what they believe. It's with my own sense of integrity, meaning what is true and right and best for me, that there's a compass, an intuitive sense of what I need to be true to myself. And that has to be number one, and that was extremely threatening to them, because I think my parents lived from this place of being good descendants, being good children to their parents. And that meant total compliance with toxicity and like red flag dissociating from, like we pretend things don't exist. That's love. We don't talk about hard things. That's love. That's what love is supposed to be. And I was literally saying, that's not my definition of love. I define it differently. And so incompatibility. Yeah.
It's just not compatible. Those dynamics, like everything you just said about the things that aren't spoken and the way that families move through things, I find it so similar to culture and the way that society navigates these things, right? There's so many different things that we don't talk about in society and that aren't okay to talk about. And as soon as you start talking about them, society very much says, whoa, you're different over there. You need to stay over there. And obviously with, social media and everything else, it's like the fear of of speaking out your truth and what your lived experience is, especially if it's going against all of these really big narratives. I mean, the narratives that surround families, the narratives that surround mothers. I mean, it's such a revered position in culture and in society. And yet the balance between, like, it's this revered position. We all think that mothers are the most, and they are, they're very, I mean, obviously the role of a mother and everything else, right? It's not minimizing it, but it's also something that is so quickly brushed past. And, society just doesn't really care about mothers, even though it's the thing that everybody says, right? Like it's that alone is so.
It's like you don't look for the wounding there.
It's not even like looking for the wounding, but it's like the lies, right? It's the manipulation of like, they're the most important thing in the world. You always respect your mother, respect your family, respect your parents. And we don't really care about them. And it's not really that important. And society's telling us so many different things, right? It's such a lie. It's such confusion.
Yeah.
And when you finally speak out and you finally stand up, I mean, it's huge, Bethany. And I think that it's something that I'm grateful that we're seeing more people talk about. Like, I'm grateful that back, because you went through this in the 2000s and you started, if I remember right, it was around like the 2013, 2014, when you started speaking about it and sharing about it. What are some of the shifts that you've noticed in the ways that people are now talking about it and sharing it, and some of the things that you've seen in people when they actually do make this shift? And it's like the extreme of, because I've gone no contact with my mom. It's been a couple of years now. Okay. And that isn't for everybody, obviously, right? Yeah. And there's a sliding scale on how you navigate relationships with your parents when you're an adult. But what have you seen in your work and obviously with people?
I want to share a few bullets on this because, I've seen some major themes. I've been coaching women on this privately for 10 years. And also for 10 years, I did bi-weekly group calls. So with all the people in my course, so I've looked at this from every other angle, and there are some really key themes. One is that our relationship, the toxicity in our relationship with our moms is in a way does like a toxin. So, if you're inhaling cigarette smoke or asbestos, even if it's a little bit, it will impact your physiology negatively over time. And I think, like, I went through this myself. I think almost all of us have to go through this, where we have to really see how toxic the impact it is. Is this something I can live with or not? And a lot of us suffer a lot for a long time by exposing ourselves to our moms. And I'm talking specifically about a certain kind of mom. And when I say toxic, I mean a certain thing, which is mothers who have a negative impact on their children, but they're not in therapy and they don't want to change. They don't want to self-reflect. They don't want to examine or improve their relationship. So that's what I mean when I say toxic, is they have a very strong negative impact that they are not interested in reducing for their child. So children, daughters, especially because of the gender identity dynamic, we also feel this conditioning that we have to be there for our moms and be there in any way we can. Like you were just saying, Craig, about this cultural pressure to be there for our moms. And eventually we wear down to the point where it's like, either something has to change. Like, I reduce contact or I go no contact. And so everybody has their own, like you said, personal process and discerning that. So I love to help women discern that. And it can take a while. Some of us can get there quicker than others. Another thing that's really key is getting to a place. This is when a real corner is turned. I'm talking big time corner gets turned in a woman's life. Is when she can feel, and it takes some people longer than others, but if you can feel anger, healthy outrage on behalf of the child that you were back then, that is a source, which a lot of people feel ambivalent about that. Like, wait a second, that means, am I being selfish? Am I being ungrateful if I feel anger on behalf of the child I was? But if you can get there and just see yourself, you were an actual dependent, totally dependent, innocent child in the home of people that were unsafe, and you experienced suffering and pain. If you can look at that, your child that you were, and feel deep compassion and anger, like that wasn't okay what I went through. That was wrong. That shouldn't have happened. That is an enormous source of self-worth that then gets, built and expands, because you start to feel your own sense of worth. And that the anger on behalf of yourself is self-love. That is self-love, and that can grow into higher standards for yourself in your relationships, in your career, with everything. So what we do in this relationship has such huge ripple effects for your well-being in every area of your life. So that's a big one, is feeling anger. Another one is feeling compassion for yourself, that you are this lovable child. Like you're a freaking miracle, like you were born never to be born again in the same body, same circumstances. Like you're a miracle. Your life, your existence is sacred. And if you can connect with the compassion for the nurturing that you needed, and to feel that sense of maternal instinct, towards your own child self, that can fill that reservoir of what you needed back then, what I call the mother gap. And that also, so those two things kind of together, like the tenderness towards the child that you were, and a fierce protection energy. I call those the two wings of inner mothering, that we need both. And sometimes we need more tenderness, and sometimes we need more fierceness. But that's what helps the child in us, that living energy that's still there and in our brain, to feel, to fill those gaps, and to feel worthy and lovable and competent and confident, and all those things that we missed from our moms. So those are really, some people are resistant to the inner child work. Like some people can take to it really easily. So it's all very, and I feel like everyone's pacing is sacred and deserves respect. Like this isn't stuff we can just like force ourselves to do. It has an organic flow to it.
We were meant to be. We were meant to be.